Hi, welcome back to the kitchen. Today I am going to show you how I make my homemade lasagna helper. Instead of using a boxed hamburger helper, I get to use fresh ingredients and kind of modify the recipe to my family's liking. So let's get into it. The ingredients for this recipe is 1 pound ground beef, 2 1/4 cups water, half a cup of milk, 1 1/2 cups of noodles, 1 8-ounce can of tomato sauce, 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, 1 tablespoon of Italian seasoning, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of sugar, half a cup of mozzarella, and Parmesan cheese shredded to your taste. I'm going to use my 12-inch Cuisinart heavy-bottomed skillet for this recipe. It holds a lot of food, which is great for a big family, and it has a nice dual handle, which helps you with handling things whenever you need to pull it out of the oven, because it doesn't have any plastic on the handles. You can throw it into the oven to brown things, do whatever you want. It's very multi-purpose. I love it. I'm going to be altering the recipe a little bit today, which is why I talked about tweaking it to your family's liking. I'm going to use some of the onions that I cut up and froze with you a few videos back. Really helps being able to throw those in. I've also done the same with garlic pucks. If you're interested in knowing how to do this, let me know in the comments down below and I will make a video on how to do that. It really helps whenever you want to use fresh garlic, but you don't want to take the time to process all of those individual cloves. So I highly recommend that. I'm also going to be using some of the mozzarella that we shredded and froze in a previous video. For this recipe, I'm going to be using pre-cooked ground beef that I keep in my freezer. It really makes throwing a recipe like this together in a hurry really easy. It really simplifies cooking. It also makes it to where your kids can throw these things together really fast as well if you need to. If you're out of town or if you're sick, they can, once you've taught them how to make the recipe, they can use this and make it so much easier. Since we're doing lasagna, I'm taking whole lasagna noodles and breaking them apart to get them ready for the recipe. You can also save from boxes where there's broken pieces. You can save those in a Ziploc bag or in a jar, however you want to do that for this type of recipe, so that they're already broken up for you. But all I'm doing is just roughly breaking them in half and then in small pieces like this. We're going to turn our burner onto medium, and since I'm using fresh veggies, I'm going to add some fat because I've already drained out the fat on my pre-cooked meat and I need to saute them in some kind of grease. You can use whatever you want. I'm going to use some beef tallow today. Since my meat is still frozen, I'm going to thaw it and warm it back up while I'm sauteing my onions and my garlic. I'm gonna use a good handful of the onions and half of a garlic puck. It's probably equal to about 1.5 cloves. I double bag my onions and my garlic because they're so potent, they will stink up your freezer and your other items in there. So this helps to keep the smell down. Alright, we are good to go to add the rest of our ingredients. If you can see, our onions are looking translucent. That means you can kind of see through them. They're soft, so we are ready to go. Now, I forgot to mention this earlier, because we have a larger family, I'm doubling this recipe, so you'll see me adding extra of everything. I'm gonna add our water. Our milk. Our tomato sauce. Stir that a little bit. One tablespoon of cornstarch. 1 tablespoon of Italian seasoning. 1 teaspoon of onion powder. Since I'm using fresh onions, I'm only going to do 1 teaspoon of onion powder. And since I'm using fresh garlic, I'm going to omit the garlic powder. 1 teaspoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, I'm also choosing to do half the sugar. We don't need it. I'm gonna stir these in to get all of the herbs and the spices incorporated with the liquid before I add my pasta. It makes it easier. You could also add it in with your tomato sauce and stir it in there and then add that to your mix. And our pasta. I'm gonna turn this up onto medium-high just so it'll heat it up a little bit faster. And once it comes to a boil, I'm going to cover it and reduce the heat down to low and let it simmer for 12 minutes. And towards the end of that, I will add my mozzarella. Go ahead and put my lid on, turn that down to low, and set my timer for 12 minutes. While that's simmering away, I'm going to go ahead and shred up some Parmesan cheese. I'm gonna take my cheese planer and just rub it down the grate to make a fine shred. I'm gonna pause this for a second and stir my pasta. If you've never used a microplaner before, these are really good for fine shreds of cheese. You can also use it to grate fresh nutmeg. If you've never used those before, it really is a great fresh flavor when you do it fresh like that instead of the powdered. And you can also use it to zest any of your citrus like oranges, lemons, grapefruits, and use that in your recipes. It works really, really great for that. They also have mini ones I've seen that are shorter, so if space is an issue, you can look for the short ones as well. Highly recommend though. We have 5 minutes left on our pasta. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the mozzarella cheese in so it has time to melt. I have several different types of these homemade hamburger helpers written down. What you can do to make it easier for yourself or for a family member to do it is pre-make these and have them in a Ziploc bag or in a mason jar with a lid on and labeled, so that all they have to do is follow the instructions that you have on your label and throw it together really easy. They don't have to find all of your ingredients. It makes it streamline that much faster for you on a busy day. If you're finding it still too runny for your taste at the end, you can leave the lid off and let some of that liquid evaporate for a few minutes. You don't want it to go too long though, because you'll start scorching at the bottom. All right, now we've got the heat off and it says we're supposed to let it set for 5 minutes and add the Parmesan cheese on top. If you don't like it this runny, then you can always cut back on the amount of water that you add to the recipe to make it to your taste. My family likes a little bit runnier because they like to be able to sop up some of the juices with garlic bread and such. But you do it to how you like it in your home and enjoy. Thanks so much for joining us in our kitchen again today. I hope you had a great time and learned something from it. Enjoy.